True Scary Internet Psycho Stories. 1. The Craigslist Killer Full Story. In the late 2000s, Craigslist, a popular online classifieds website, became the hunting ground for a calculating and deadly criminal, Philip Markoff, a medical student who lived a double life as a predator. Markoff, dubbed the Craigslist Killer by the media, shocked the world with his vicious crimes, demonstrating how someone could leverage the anonymity of the internet to conceal their true intentions. Markoff's reign of terror began in 2009 when he started answering ads posted by women offering erotic services on Craigslist. With his prestigious background and upcoming wedding to his fiancée, no one could have guessed the darkness that lay beneath his seemingly normal life. On April 10, 2009, Markoff's first known attack occurred. He responded to an ad placed by Tricia Leffler, an escort offering private services in a Boston hotel. Leffler met him in her room, expecting a typical client. However, once inside, Markoff produced a gun, bound her hands with plastic ties, and stole cash, leaving her frightened but physically unharmed. His chilling calmness during the crime left a lasting impression on Leffler, but it was only the beginning. Just a few days later, on April 14, 2009, Markoff struck again, this time with fatal consequences. He contacted Julissa Brisman, a 26-year-old aspiring model who had also posted an ad on Craigslist for massage services. Unlike his previous attack, this encounter escalated quickly when Brisman resisted his attempts to bind her. Enraged, Markoff brutally bludgeoned her with his weapon and shot her multiple times, leaving her dead in the hotel room. Markoff fled the scene before hotel security could intervene. The murders sent shockwaves through the community, and police scrambled to investigate the crimes. Surveillance footage from the hotels, along with electronic evidence from Craigslist, soon pointed to Markoff. On April 16, 2009, Markoff arranged to meet a third woman, an exotic dancer, at a hotel in Rhode Island. Luckily, she managed to escape unharmed, but the authorities were now closing in. They used digital footprints from his online activity to link him to the crimes. Markoff was arrested on April 20, 2009, on his way to a casino with his fiancée. The arrest shocked the nation as the image of the intelligent, successful medical student and loving fiancé shattered in the face of his sadistic crimes. Investigators found that Markoff had been leading a disturbing double life, where his inner psychopathy had collided with the anonymity of the internet. Though Markoff was charged with multiple crimes, including murder, he never stood trial. In 2010, while in custody, Markoff committed suicide in his jail cell using a razor blade he had hidden inside a book. He left behind a note for his fiancée, but no clear explanation for his deadly behavior. Markoff's story remains one of the most notorious examples of how someone can use the internet to deceive and harm others. His calculated use of Craigslist to select vulnerable targets, combined with his outwardly normal life, makes this story even more disturbing. Behind the screen, he became a predator, demonstrating the terrifying ease with which people can manipulate digital spaces for dark purposes. 2. The Catfish and the Obsessive Stalker. Emma was a 22-year-old college student who had been navigating the dating world like many of her peers, through online dating apps. She wasn't looking for anything serious, just casual dates, when she matched with someone named Michael. Michael was everything she wanted: charming, handsome, and emotionally open. They talked for months through text messages, emails, and late-night phone calls. The only problem was that Michael always had excuses whenever they tried to meet in person. At first, Emma wasn't too concerned. Long-distance relationships had their challenges. But as months passed, the excuses began to sound less and less believable. Emma grew frustrated, but by then, she was emotionally invested. What she didn't realize was that Michael wasn't who he claimed to be. In reality, Emma had been catfished by someone who had been secretly stalking her for years. James, the real person behind Michael's identity, was an old high school acquaintance who had become obsessed with her. Using the false persona of Michael, James managed to insert himself into her life, gaining her trust and making her feel dependent on their online relationship. The situation took a darker turn when Emma began to notice strange things happening around her. She would come home to find her personal belongings moved, lights turned on when she was sure she had turned them off, and on one occasion, her front door unlocked. When she received a text from Michael describing the outfit she was wearing, she became alarmed. How could he possibly know what she was wearing when they had never met in person? Frightened, Emma confided in a friend who encouraged her to contact the police. When authorities investigated, they uncovered a nightmare scenario. James had installed hidden cameras in her apartment and had been spying on her for months. He had hacked into her phone and computer, tracking her every movement, and had gone so far as to stalk her in real life. When the police arrested James, they found a detailed log of Emma's daily activities, photos of her taken without her knowledge, and evidence of his long-standing obsession with her. The emotional damage to Emma was immense. The sense of betrayal and violation left her paranoid, constantly fearing she was being watched. James had used the internet's anonymity to hide his true identity, manipulating Emma into a false sense of security while stalking her in real life. This story demonstrates how dangerous the internet can be when someone with malicious intentions uses it to manipulate and exploit vulnerable people. 3. The Blue Whale Challenge, a game of death. In 2016, a disturbing trend emerged that targeted vulnerable teenagers across the world. Known as the Blue Whale Challenge, this twisted game originated in Russia and quickly spread through social media and messaging apps, preying on those struggling with mental health issues. The challenge was a 50-day online game in which participants were assigned increasingly dangerous tasks, with the final task being suicide. The game's curators, anonymous individuals who sought out vulnerable teens, would start by assigning simple challenges, like watching horror movies or drawing a blue whale on their arms. But as the days went on, the tasks became darker, pushing participants to engage in acts of self-harm, isolation, and even threatening their families. By the 50th day, the curator would order the participant to take their own life, often under the guise that their family would be harmed if they didn't comply. One of the most high-profile victims of the Blue Whale Challenge was Yulia Konstantinova, a 15-year-old Russian girl who posted cryptic social media messages in the days leading up to her death, including a picture of a blue whale and the word "end." Her tragic death, along with the suicides of several other teens, sent shockwaves through the world, as parents and law enforcement agencies scrambled to shut down the online communities promoting the challenge. Despite efforts to curb the game's spread, the Blue Whale Challenge found its way to other countries, including the US, India, and parts of Europe. Authorities worked tirelessly to track down the curators and arrest those responsible for pushing teens into this deadly game, but the damage had already been done. Vulnerable teens, isolated from the real world, had fallen into the manipulative hands of predators who exploited their fragile mental states. The Blue Whale Challenge serves as a stark reminder of how dangerous online communities can become when left unchecked. Behind the anonymity of a screen, curators manipulated and terrorized teens, leading them down a dark path towards self-destruction. It's a haunting example of the internet's power to connect individuals, even in the most horrifying and tragic ways. 4. The Babysitter Imposter. Megan was a young mother of two who was in desperate need of childcare. Balancing her job with her responsibilities as a single parent had become overwhelming, so she decided to find a babysitter through Craigslist. After posting her ad, she quickly received a response from Sarah, a woman who seemed to be an experienced and reliable sitter. Sarah provided glowing references and claimed to have years of experience taking care of children. Megan did some background checks but didn't dig too deeply, feeling confident in her choice after speaking with Sarah over the phone. Sarah arrived on the appointed day, cheerful and professional, and Megan left her two children in her care while she went to work. However, as soon as Megan left, Sarah's true nature emerged. Instead of taking care of the children, she began snooping around Megan's house, searching for valuables and personal information. She rifled through drawers, found financial documents, and even took photos of Megan's credit cards and identification. It quickly became clear that Sarah wasn't a babysitter at all, but a scammer who had been targeting families through online classified ads. Fortunately, Megan had installed a nanny cam in her home and later reviewed the footage. What she saw made her blood run cold. Sarah had spent hours in her home, rummaging through her belongings, completely ignoring the children. Megan immediately called the police, and Sarah was arrested. Further investigation revealed that Sarah had been using Craigslist to gain access to homes, stealing money, and committing identity theft. Megan's trust in the internet was shattered. She had unknowingly allowed a dangerous individual into her home and around her children, all because she believed the facade that Sarah had built online. The experience left Megan shaken, but it also served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of trusting people found through online platforms without thorough vetting. 5. The dark web nightmare. In 2015, Sarah, a young woman in her early 20s, stumbled upon something that would forever change her life. After spending years on mainstream social media sites, she had grown curious about the darker corners of the internet and began exploring the notorious dark web. It was supposed to be a harmless exploration, an anonymous dive into the murkier side of online existence, but what she found was far from harmless. Sarah visited forums, message boards, and chat rooms filled with individuals discussing things she had never imagined. Despite her growing unease, she continued to explore out of morbid curiosity. One day, she entered a chat room where users discussed a disturbing topic: human trafficking. They weren't just talking about the phenomenon, they were actively involved in it. As Sarah lurked in the chat room, someone noticed her presence. She received a private message from an anonymous user with a simple, spine-chilling question: "Are you watching us?" Terrified, she quickly closed her browser and deleted her history, but the next day she received an email. The subject line read, "We know who you are." The message contained her full name, home address, and phone number. The sender claimed to be part of an underground network involved in human trafficking and threatened her, warning her to keep quiet about what she had seen. Shaken to her core, Sarah contacted law enforcement, who advised her to change her passwords, secure her devices, and avoid all further contact. But the nightmare didn't end there. Over the next few weeks, she noticed strange cars parked near her house, received anonymous phone calls, and found evidence that someone had been snooping through her trash. In constant fear for her safety, Sarah eventually moved to a new city and changed her identity. Though she escaped the immediate danger, she never fully recovered from the psychological trauma. Her brief foray into the dark web had unearthed real, horrifying criminals who left her with the terrifying knowledge that she had been mere steps away from becoming one of their victims. The dark web, with its promise of anonymity, is a haven for criminals and psychopaths. Sarah's story serves as a stark reminder that not all corners of the internet are safe for exploration, and that some secrets should never be uncovered. 6. The Reddit stalker. Reddit is often thought of as a relatively safe space for internet users to exchange information and engage in lively discussions. However, in 2018, Jane discovered the terrifying potential for danger when anonymity and obsession mix on even the most seemingly innocent platforms. Jane was a regular Reddit user, primarily posting in subreddits related to fitness and wellness. She enjoyed sharing her progress and exchanging tips with others in the community. Over time, she developed a small following of users who commented regularly on her posts, offering support and advice. One user in particular, who went by the username FitFanatic, seemed especially interested in Jane's progress. At first, it seemed like harmless admiration. He frequently complimented her posts and sent encouraging messages. But things quickly escalated. FitFanatic began sending Jane direct messages asking for more personal details, like where she lived, her daily routine, and even what gym she went to. Jane ignored the requests and brushed off his behavior as overly enthusiastic. However, when she mentioned in a post that she was going to a local fitness event, things took a chilling turn. That weekend, Jane attended the event, which was a large public gathering of fitness enthusiasts. As she walked through the crowded area, she suddenly received a message on Reddit: "I see you." It was from FitFanatic. Her heart dropped. She frantically looked around, but saw nothing suspicious. Panicking, she immediately left the event. Over the next few weeks, the messages became more invasive. FitFanatic claimed to know her schedule, where she worked, and even the names of her friends. It became clear that this wasn't just someone who admired her fitness journey, this was a stalker. Terrified, Jane went to the police, but since the messages were anonymous and came through Reddit, there wasn't much they could do initially. The stalker hadn't physically harmed her, and tracking down the anonymous user was proving difficult. Things escalated when Fit Fanatic sent Jane a photo of her walking into her apartment building. That was the final straw. With the help of cybercrime investigators, they managed to trace the IP address of the stalker. It turned out that Fit Fanatic was someone from her local gym who had been obsessively following her online and in real life for months. The police arrested the man, but the emotional toll left Jane constantly looking over her shoulder, and she eventually deleted all her online profiles. What started as a simple Reddit account became a stalking nightmare that followed her into the real world, showing how anonymity on seemingly harmless platforms can embolden dangerous individuals. 7. The webcam horror. Anna was a 19-year-old college student who, like many her age, spent a lot of time online. She frequently used her laptop for studying, video calls with friends, and streaming shows. Unbeknownst to her, she had become the target of an internet predator who had found a way to hack into her laptop's webcam, allowing him to watch her every move. It began when Anna noticed strange behavior on her computer. The webcam light would flicker on for no apparent reason, but since it turned off quickly, she didn't think much of it. Then, she started receiving strange emails from an unknown sender. The first email simply said, "Nice pajamas." Confused, she ignored it. A few days later, another email came, "Your pink sweater looks good on you." This time, she panicked. How could a stranger know what she was wearing? Terrified, Anna realized that someone had been watching her through her webcam. She immediately covered her webcam with tape, but the emails kept coming. The predator knew things about her daily routine, what time she left her dorm, and where she liked to study. It was clear he had been watching her for a long time. The situation escalated when the predator sent a series of photos of Anna that had been taken from her own webcam. The photos weren't explicit, but they were enough to leave Anna feeling violated and terrified. She went to campus security, who contacted the police. Investigators discovered that her laptop had been infected with a remote access Trojan, RAT, a type of malware that allowed the hacker to take control of her webcam and spy on her without her knowledge. The experience left Anna traumatized. She had been watched in her most private moments by a stranger, and the violation of her privacy had a deep psychological impact. The predator was never caught, but Anna's story highlights the horrifying potential for abuse when someone gains access to your devices through the internet. It serves as a stark warning to always be vigilant about online security, especially when it comes to devices with cameras. 8. The Facebook friend. When Laura received a friend request from someone named Adam on Facebook, she didn't think much of it. He seemed like a friendly guy, and they had a few mutual friends, so she accepted the request. Over the next few months, Adam would occasionally like her posts and comment on her pictures. They exchanged casual messages, but nothing too personal. It seemed like an ordinary online friendship. However, things took a disturbing turn when Adam started asking strange questions, like what time she left for work or whether she lived alone. Laura felt uncomfortable and began ignoring his messages. But Adam didn't give up. He started posting more personal comments on her profile, and when she didn't respond, he sent a message saying, "I know where you live." Panicked, Laura blocked him on Facebook, but the harassment didn't stop. Adam created new profiles under different names and continued to send her messages, each one more threatening than the last. One message contained a photo of Laura's house, taken from the street. It became clear that Adam had been stalking her in real life. Laura contacted the police, but without knowing Adam's true identity, there wasn't much they could do at first. Adam escalated his behavior, sending more detailed threats and even leaving disturbing voicemails on her phone. Laura became paranoid, always looking over her shoulder, and eventually moved to a new apartment to escape his reach. Finally, after months of investigation, the police managed to track down Adam through his digital trail. He turned out to be someone Laura had met briefly at a party years before, a man who had become obsessed with her and used Facebook to keep tabs on her life. He was arrested for stalking, but the emotional damage had already been done. Laura deleted her social media accounts and withdrew from her online presence completely, left traumatized by the ease with which Adam had used the internet to invade her life. 9. The Tinder nightmare. In 2019, Samantha, a 24-year-old woman living in Chicago, decided to try her luck on the dating app Tinder. She was looking for a casual connection, just someone to hang out with, and possibly build a relationship over time. After swiping through various profiles, she matched with David, a seemingly normal guy with shared interests. He worked as a graphic designer, loved the same music as she did, and had an easygoing sense of humor that immediately attracted her. Their conversation quickly transitioned from in-app messaging to text messages and phone calls. After a few weeks, David suggested they meet in person, and Samantha felt comfortable enough to agree. They decided to meet for coffee at a popular local cafe. The meeting went well. David seemed as charming in person as he did online. After the date, they continued texting, and plans for a second date were soon made. However, after their second date, Samantha began to feel uneasy. David started texting her constantly, asking where she was, who she was with, and why she wasn't responding immediately. At first, she brushed it off as him being overly eager, but his behavior escalated quickly. He would send her messages late at night, telling her that he was outside her apartment or at places he knew she frequented, even though she had never told him where she lived. Samantha tried to end things, telling David that she didn't think they should continue seeing each other. This is when the real nightmare began. David began stalking her relentlessly. He would show up unannounced at her workplace, sit outside her apartment building for hours, and flood her phone with texts and calls, sometimes numbering in the hundreds per day. His behavior became increasingly erratic, and he would send her messages like, "If I can't have you, no one can." Terrified, Samantha blocked David's number, deleted her Tinder account, and reported the situation to the police. But even after she took these precautions, he continued to harass her, using fake numbers and accounts to bypass her blocks. On one occasion, he left flowers outside her door with a note that read, "See you soon." With the help of law enforcement, Samantha eventually filed for a restraining order, but it took months of anxiety and sleepless nights before the harassment finally stopped. It was later revealed that David had a history of obsessive behavior with women he met online, but he had never been reported to authorities before. Samantha's story highlights the dangerous side of online dating, where someone's true intentions can remain hidden until it's too late. 10. The Instagram Imposter. Allison was a popular Instagram influencer who regularly posted about her life, fashion, and travel adventures. With over 100,000 followers, she enjoyed interacting with her fans, often responding to comments and sharing personal details about her life. However, one follower stood out from the rest, a user named Maddie, who frequently commented on her posts and sent her direct messages. At first, Maddie's messages were flattering, complimenting Allison's style and asking for advice. But over time, they became more invasive. Maddie wanted to know where Allison lived, what she was doing at specific times, and even asked for photos of her apartment. When Allison didn't respond, Maddie's messages grew more insistent and bizarre, with her claiming they were best friends and that Allison was ignoring her. Feeling uncomfortable, Allison blocked Maddie and moved on, but the situation didn't end there. A few days later, Allison's fans began messaging her, telling her that they had seen another Instagram account with her photos and content. Someone had created an imposter account under a different name, but they were using all of Allison's images and pretending to be her. The account was filled with pictures from Allison's real-life travels and events, some of which she had never posted publicly. Whoever was running the account had somehow gained access to personal photos that Allison had only shared with close friends. Alarmed, Allison reported the fake account to Instagram, but the response was slow and the account remained active. The imposter began messaging Allison's followers, pretending to be her and asking for personal information, claiming it was for giveaways or exclusive offers. One follower even contacted Allison directly, saying that the imposter had asked them for intimate photos in exchange for a promised collaboration. The situation became so out of control that Allison had to involve the police, fearing that her private information had been compromised. After a lengthy investigation, it was discovered that Maddie, the obsessed follower Allison had blocked, was behind the imposter account. She had hacked into one of Allison's private email accounts and gained access to her photos and personal information. Maddie was arrested for identity theft and cyberstalking, but the experience left Allison shaken and distrustful of the internet. She took a break from social media, unsure of how much of her life she wanted to share with the public ever again. 11. The Facebook Marketplace Killer. When Tim, a 28-year-old living in Ohio, decided to sell his old car, he thought using Facebook Marketplace would be a convenient way to find a buyer. He listed the vehicle, added some photos, and within hours, he received several messages from interested parties. One buyer stood out, a man named Greg, who seemed polite and eager to purchase the car. After exchanging messages, Greg offered to meet Tim in person to take a look at the car. They arranged to meet in a public parking lot during the day, and everything seemed normal. Greg showed up, inspected the car, and even took it for a quick test drive. He agreed to buy the car, and they arranged to meet the next day to finalize the sale. However, the next day things took a terrifying turn. Tim arrived at the agreed location, but instead of Greg, 2 other men appeared, claiming they were there on his behalf. They were aggressive, demanding the keys to the car and trying to intimidate Tim into handing them over. Tim, sensing danger, tried to leave, but the men attacked him, beating him viciously and stealing his wallet, phone, and car. After the attack, Tim managed to call the police, but the men had already fled with his vehicle. It was later discovered that Greg had lured multiple sellers using Facebook Marketplace with the intent of robbing them. Tim's case was part of a larger pattern of thefts and violent attacks orchestrated by Greg and his associates. Though the police eventually apprehended the criminals, Tim was left physically and emotionally scarred by the ordeal. What had seemed like a simple online transaction turned into a life-threatening situation, all because someone had used the anonymity of the internet to prey on unsuspecting sellers. 12. The eBay Revenge Plot. Rachel was an avid eBay user, buying and selling various items to supplement her income. One day, she sold a rare vintage watch to a buyer who seemed polite and paid promptly. However, after receiving the watch, the buyer, named Carl, sent her a message claiming that the watch was defective and demanded a refund. Rachel had thoroughly checked the watch before shipping it and knew it was in perfect working order. She offered to accept a return if Carl sent the watch back, but he refused and became increasingly aggressive. He left negative feedback on her profile, tarnishing her previously perfect seller rating, and sent her multiple threatening emails. What Rachel didn't realize was that Carl wasn't just an unhappy buyer. He was a vengeful scammer who had a history of harassing sellers who wouldn't comply with his demands. When Rachel refused to issue a refund without receiving the watch back, Carl escalated his tactics. He found Rachel's home address through her eBay account and began sending her harassing letters, packages, and even had food deliveries sent to her house in her name. Terrified, Rachel contacted eBay and the police, but since Carl hadn't physically harmed her, there was little they could do. The harassment continued for weeks, with Carl even sending her threatening messages through other online platforms. He created fake accounts to leave damaging reviews on her business profiles and spread false rumors about her online. The situation became so unbearable that Rachel had to move to a new address and change all her contact information to escape Carl's obsessive behavior. It took months for her to regain a sense of security, and the experience left her with lasting anxiety about conducting business online. 13. The Snapchat Predator. In 2020, 16-year-old Katie, like many teenagers, used Snapchat to chat with friends and share photos. One day, she received a message from a user named Jake, who claimed to be a new student at her school. They exchanged casual messages, and Jake seemed friendly, asking about school, her hobbies, and her daily routine. However, Jake's questions soon became more personal and invasive. He asked for photos of her, but Katie felt uncomfortable and declined. After she refused, Jake's tone changed drastically. He began threatening her, claiming he had hacked into her phone and had access to her private photos. Katie panicked, not knowing if it was true. Terrified that Jake would leak private information, Katie considered complying with his demands. However, after confiding in her older sister, they decided to report the situation to their parents and the authorities. When investigators looked into the case, they discovered that Jake wasn't a teenager at all. He was a 35-year-old man posing as a high school student to manipulate young girls online. Katie's story is a stark reminder of the dangers lurking on social media platforms like Snapchat, where predators can easily assume false identities to exploit vulnerable users. Thanks to Katie's courage in coming forward, the man was arrested and charged with multiple counts of cyberstalking and harassment. 14. The YouTube Stalker. Amanda was an aspiring YouTuber who started her channel to share beauty tutorials and lifestyle tips. Over time, she garnered a following of loyal subscribers, and her channel grew steadily. Amanda enjoyed interacting with her viewers, answering their questions in the comments, and sometimes responding to direct messages through Instagram and Twitter. However, one fan stood out, Ethan. A username Amanda frequently saw in her comments seemed to idolize her. He left lengthy comments on almost every video she posted, often praising her looks and asking personal questions. Initially, Amanda found it flattering. After all, dedicated followers were the lifeblood of her growing channel. But soon, Ethan's behavior took a dark turn. He began sending private messages to her social media accounts, asking for her phone number and trying to find out where she lived. When Amanda didn't respond, Ethan's tone became aggressive. He started accusing her of ignoring him and being ungrateful for her fans. Amanda blocked him, but Ethan was undeterred. He created multiple new accounts and continued to harass her. The situation escalated when Amanda received a chilling package at her home. Inside was a hand-drawn picture of her, along with a note that read, "I'm watching you." Amanda was horrified. Ethan had found her address, something she had never shared publicly. She immediately went to the police, but since Ethan's harassment was primarily online, there was little they could do at first. For weeks, Ethan continued to torment her, leaving messages on every platform he could find, sending more disturbing packages, and even showing up outside her house. The police eventually tracked him down and arrested him for stalking, but the psychological damage was done. Amanda stopped posting videos for months and lived in constant fear that someone was always watching her. What started as innocent fan engagement had turned into a nightmare. 15. The Discord Predator. David was an avid gamer and part of a large online community on Discord, where he and other gamers would chat, share tips, and play together. Over time, he made friends with a user named Alex, who seemed to share many of his interests. They played games together regularly and eventually started having long conversations about their personal lives. Alex always seemed supportive and interested in David's life, asking about his job, his relationships, and even his family. They grew close, with David considering Alex a trusted friend, despite having never met him in person. However, Alex soon began to ask increasingly invasive questions, particularly about David's location and routine. David brushed it off, assuming Alex was just being overly curious. Then one day, Alex mentioned in passing that he knew where David worked. Alarmed, David asked how Alex had that information, as he had never shared it. Alex laughed it off and changed the subject, but David couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. A few weeks later, David noticed a strange car parked outside his apartment. He dismissed it at first, but the car appeared multiple times over the following days. Then he received a chilling message from Alex on Discord. "Nice place you've got. See you soon." David's heart sank. Alex knew where he lived. David immediately contacted the police, and with the help of cybersecurity experts, they discovered that Alex had been using sophisticated methods to track David's location through their conversations on Discord and other social media platforms. Alex wasn't just a fellow gamer. He was a predator who had been stalking David both online and in real life. The police managed to apprehend Alex before he could carry out whatever plans he had, but the experience left David deeply shaken, his sense of safety forever shattered. 16. The Horror. In 2018, Sarah and her husband, James, decided to rent an elm for a weekend getaway in a quiet, rural area. They found what seemed to be the perfect cottage, a cozy, isolated retreat that had glowing reviews from previous guests. The host, John, was polite and accommodating during their correspondence, and the booking process went smoothly. When they arrived at the cottage, everything seemed perfect. The home was as advertised, and they were excited to spend a peaceful weekend away from the hustle and bustle of city life. However, on their second night, Sarah noticed something strange. As she was getting ready for bed, she felt like she was being watched. She brushed it off as paranoia, but the feeling persisted. The next morning, while cleaning up the kitchen, James found a small, inconspicuous black box hidden behind a plant on a shelf. Upon closer inspection, they realized it was a camera. Horrified, they began searching the rest of the house and found 2 more hidden cameras in the living room and bedroom. Their peaceful retreat had turned into a nightmare. The cameras had likely been recording them since they arrived. Panicking, they immediately left the cottage and contacted Anne and the local authorities. An investigation revealed that the cameras were linked to a recording system hidden in the attic, which had been installed by the host, John. He had been secretly recording his guests for months, if not years, without their knowledge. John was arrested for invasion of privacy, but the damage to Sarah and James' sense of security was profound. They had chosen the cottage for its isolation, only to realize that they had been watched the entire time. The incident exposed a growing problem with hidden surveillance in rental properties and served as a chilling reminder that even in places where you think you are safe, someone may be watching. 17. The grooming chat room. At 14 years old, Lisa was just beginning to explore the internet on her own. She loved chatting with friends and meeting new people in online chat rooms. One evening, she entered a chat room that appeared to be for teenagers like her. She quickly struck up a conversation with a user named Sam, who claimed to be 16. Over the next few weeks, Lisa and Sam became close friends. They chatted every night, talking about school, family, and their favorite TV shows. Sam always seemed to know just what to say to make her feel special and understood. He encouraged her to share more about herself, asking her to send photos, telling her that she was beautiful, and making her feel like he really cared about her. However, Lisa's mother became suspicious of her daughter's new friend and began monitoring their conversations. What she discovered was chilling. Sam was not 16, nor was he a teenager at all. He was a 40-year-old man who had been grooming Lisa, gaining her trust with the goal of eventually manipulating her into sending inappropriate photos and possibly arranging a meeting. Terrified, Lisa's mother contacted the police, who quickly intervened before any more harm could be done. Sam was arrested, and the investigation revealed that he had been using multiple fake profiles to target young girls in chat rooms. Lisa's innocence and trust had been exploited by a predator who used the anonymity of the internet to conceal his true identity. This experience left Lisa traumatized, and her family worked to rebuild her trust and sense of safety. The incident served as a harsh lesson about the dangers lurking in online spaces where predators target the most vulnerable members of society. 18. The eBay revenge hacker. Nathan was a frequent user of eBay, where he sold rare video games as a side business. One day, he sold a particularly valuable game to a buyer who seemed happy with the purchase. However, after receiving the game, the buyer claimed it was damaged and demanded a refund. Nathan, who had meticulously packaged the game, refused, knowing the item was in perfect condition. The buyer, enraged, began sending Nathan harassing messages, threatening to leave negative feedback and demanding his money back. When Nathan continued to refuse, the harassment escalated. The buyer somehow obtained Nathan's email address and began spamming him with malicious links. Things took a terrifying turn when Nathan realized that his eBay and personal email accounts had been hacked. The buyer had infiltrated his accounts, changed his passwords, and was using them to wreak havoc on his online presence. Nathan's PayPal account was drained, and the hacker began sending threatening messages to his family members, claiming they had personal information that could ruin their lives. The buyer had turned into a full-blown cyberstalker, hell-bent on revenge. It took months of battling with eBay, PayPal, and cybersecurity professionals to regain control of his accounts and secure his personal information. The buyer was eventually tracked down and charged with multiple cybercrimes, but the damage to Nathan's online business and personal life was devastating. What started as a simple eBay transaction had turned into a nightmare of hacking, harassment, and identity theft. 19. The online hitman. In 2016, Jennifer, a 32-year-old woman from Texas, found herself in the middle of a bizarre and terrifying situation after she became the target of an online assassination plot. It began when she received an anonymous email from a user claiming to be part of an underground network of hitmen. The email stated that someone had paid them to kill her, but for a large sum of money, they were willing to call off the hit. At first, Jennifer thought it was a sick joke or a scam, but as she read further, the email included frighteningly accurate details about her life, her home address, daily routine, and even the names of her family members. The message demanded that she transfer money through a cryptocurrency service, or they would proceed with the assassination. Terrified, Jennifer contacted the police, who took the threat seriously. After a thorough investigation, it was discovered that the email came from a dark web extortion ring that had been targeting random individuals, demanding money in exchange for calling off fictional hits. While the plot was fake, the details they had on Jennifer were real, most likely gathered from her social media and public records. Though no physical danger ever existed, the psychological toll on Jennifer was immense. She had come face to face with the dark side of the internet, where strangers could dig into her private life and use that information to terrorize her. It took months for her to feel safe again, and she drastically changed her online presence, deleting social media accounts and becoming hyper-vigilant about her personal information. 20. The online cult leader. In 2015, 22-year-old Emily was feeling lost and searching for a sense of purpose. She found herself frequenting online forums focused on self-improvement and spirituality. It was on one of these platforms that she encountered a user who called himself the Enlightened One. He preached a unique blend of philosophy, self-empowerment, and spiritual guidance, and Emily, like many others, found herself drawn in by his charisma and seemingly profound insights. Over the next few months, Emily joined an online group that the Enlightened One ran. The group held private Zoom meetings where the leader would share his teachings. At first, it seemed harmless, with discussions about meditation, positive thinking, and self-empowerment. But as time passed, the group's focus shifted. The leader began isolating members, convincing them to cut ties with their families and friends, and encouraging them to dedicate themselves fully to the group's cause. Emily found herself becoming more isolated, both emotionally and physically. The leader manipulated her and other members, asking for increasingly personal details about their lives, fears, and vulnerabilities. He even convinced members to donate large sums of money, claiming it was essential for their spiritual growth. The situation escalated when the Enlightened One began talking about transcending the physical world through extreme acts, hinting that true followers would be asked to prove their loyalty in disturbing ways. Emily, now feeling trapped, finally confided in her sister, who was shocked to hear how deeply involved she had become in this online cult. With her family's help, Emily contacted law enforcement, and an investigation into the cult's activities began. It was revealed that the Enlightened One had been running multiple online cults, preying on vulnerable individuals around the world, and financially exploiting them. Fortunately, Emily escaped before the situation became worse, but others were not as lucky. The emotional and psychological manipulation she endured left her scared, and she spent years in therapy, trying to rebuild her sense of self. 21. The revenge porn extortionist. Chloe, a 25-year-old woman living in Los Angeles, thought she had met the perfect guy online. She started chatting with Matt on a dating app, and their relationship quickly became romantic. After a few weeks of flirting and getting to know each other, Chloe felt comfortable enough to share intimate photos with him. Matt was charming and seemed trustworthy, so she didn't think twice. However, things quickly spiraled out of control when Matt's true intentions were revealed. One day, after an argument, Matt sent her a message that made her blood run cold. He had saved all of her private photos and threatened to release them publicly unless she paid him a significant sum of money. Chloe was devastated. She had trusted Matt and now realized he had only been manipulating her for this very moment. Panicking, she tried to reason with him, but Matt was relentless, demanding money and even more photos, threatening to send her explicit pictures to her friends, family, and co-workers if she didn't comply. Fearing for her reputation and personal safety, Chloe sought help from law enforcement. Revenge porn, while a devastating violation, is illegal in many places, and with the help of cybersecurity experts, the authorities tracked Matt down. It turned out that he had done this to multiple women, using online dating apps as a way to target, manipulate, and extort his victims. Matt was arrested, but the damage to Chloe's emotional well-being was severe. She became withdrawn, fearful of online interactions, and had to navigate the painful process of restoring her sense of trust and security. The case highlighted how the anonymity of the internet can give predators the tools to exploit personal vulnerability in the most horrific ways. 22. The Twitter death threats. In 2018, Mike was a journalist who frequently shared his opinions on current events through Twitter. While his tweets often sparked heated discussions, he never expected that they would lead to a life-threatening situation. One day, after posting a controversial opinion about a political issue, Mike began receiving an alarming amount of hostile responses. Most were typical online trolls, but one user, Anonymous42, stood out. Anonymous42 began sending Mike direct messages filled with disturbing and violent threats. The messages started with insults but quickly escalated into graphic descriptions of what the user wanted to do to him and his family. Anonymous42 claimed to know where Mike lived and sent a picture of Mike's house, which he had found through a simple internet search. Mike, already rattled by the death threats, was terrified when his wife and children started receiving similar threats on their social media accounts. The user seemed to have access to more information than should have been possible, details about Mike's daily routine, his children's school, and even the places his family liked to visit. Terrified for his family's safety, Mike contacted the police, but tracking Anonymous42 proved difficult, as the user was utilizing various anonymous accounts and VPNs to hide their identity. Mike and his family were advised to temporarily relocate, and after weeks of living in fear, the authorities finally caught a break. The user was arrested after making a mistake in one of his online profiles, revealing his real location. It turned out that Anonymous42 was a former co-worker who had developed a grudge against Mike years earlier and had been waiting for the perfect opportunity to unleash his pent-up rage. The discovery was both shocking and deeply unsettling, as it illustrated just how easy it was for someone with malicious intent to hide behind the anonymity of the internet and use it to threaten real-world harm. 23. The WhatsApp scam that turned deadly. In 2021, 30-year-old Mark, a software developer from the UK, received a seemingly innocent message on WhatsApp from a stranger claiming to be from a reputable bank. The message was well-crafted, using official-looking logos and terminology, informing Mark that his bank account had been compromised and that he needed to provide information to secure it. Mark, busy with work and not paying full attention, replied to the message, giving away his banking details without verifying the authenticity of the sender. It wasn't until days later, when his bank contacted him about suspicious transactions, that Mark realized he had fallen victim to a phishing scam. However, the situation didn't end there. After reporting the fraud and trying to recover his money, Mark started receiving threatening messages from the scammers. They demanded that he drop the case with his bank, threatening to harm him and his family if he continued to pursue the issue. The scammers sent pictures of Mark's house and even mentioned his young daughter by name, proving they had done their research on his personal life. Fearing for his family's safety, Mark contacted law enforcement, who investigated the matter. It was revealed that the scammers were part of a larger criminal network that used phishing scams not only to steal money, but also to intimidate victims into staying silent by using threats of violence. Although Mark and his family were eventually placed under police protection, the fear and stress of being targeted left lasting scars. The ease with which the scammers transitioned from financial fraud to real-life threats showcased the terrifying potential for cybercrime to cross into the physical world. 24. The Snapchat nightmare. 16-year-old Jasmine, like many teens, used Snapchat to connect with her friends and share photos. One day, she received a friend request from a user named Chris, who claimed to be a friend of a friend. After chatting casually for a while, Chris began asking Jasmine to send him pictures. At first, it seemed harmless, just selfies and pictures of her day. But over time, Chris's requests became more inappropriate, asking her to send explicit photos. When Jasmine refused, Chris's friendly demeanor disappeared. He threatened to leak all the personal photos she had already sent to her family and friends. Panicked, Jasmine blocked him, but the nightmare didn't end there. Chris created new accounts and continued harassing her, threatening to ruin her life if she didn't comply. Terrified and feeling trapped, Jasmine finally told her parents, who immediately contacted the police. An investigation revealed that Chris wasn't who he claimed to be. He was an adult predator who had been using fake profiles to target and manipulate young girls online. The man was arrested, but Jasmine's sense of trust in social media was shattered. The experience left her with lasting anxiety, as she had to navigate the shame and fear that came from being exploited by a stranger. Jasmine's story highlights the dangers of online predators who use seemingly harmless platforms like Snapchat to manipulate and blackmail vulnerable users. 25. The Zoom Bomber Stalker. During the pandemic, Zoe, a college student, participated in multiple online classes and meetings through Zoom. Like many people adjusting to life in a virtual environment, she found herself spending hours on video calls each day. One afternoon, while attending a class, her Zoom meeting was interrupted by a stranger who had somehow gained access to the private session. At first, it seemed like a typical case of Zoom bombing, an annoying but harmless prank. However, the intruder didn't just shout obscenities or play loud music like most Zoom bombers. Instead, the person addressed Zoe directly by name and mentioned details about her life that no stranger should know, such as her home address and the names of her family members. Zoe immediately left the meeting, but the stalker continued to access her other Zoom calls, appearing in different classes and meetings throughout the following days. Each time, the stalker's messages became more sinister, threatening to harm her and her loved ones if she didn't comply with his demands. Horrified, Zoe contacted campus security and the police. After a thorough investigation, they discovered that the stalker had used phishing tactics to gain access to Zoe's email and Zoom account. From there, he had been able to infiltrate her meetings and terrorize her with personal information that he had found online. The stalker was eventually arrested, but the invasion of Zoe's privacy left her shaken. She no longer felt safe in online spaces, and even after the stalker's arrest, the fear of being watched lingered. The incident illustrated how something as simple as a virtual meeting could turn into a nightmare when a predator decides to target you. 26. The LinkedIn Predator. In 2020, Michelle, a marketing executive, decided to refresh her LinkedIn profile as she was seeking new job opportunities. She began engaging with recruiters and professionals in her industry, hoping to network and potentially secure a new position. One connection stood out: a man named Greg, who appeared to be a high-level executive in a well-known company. His messages were professional at first, offering advice on how to improve her resume and profile. However, after several exchanges, Greg's tone began to shift. He started making personal comments about Michelle's appearance in her LinkedIn profile picture and sent increasingly flirtatious messages. Michelle, wanting to keep things professional, politely ignored these remarks and continued focusing on career-related conversations. But Greg's behavior escalated. He began messaging her at all hours, sending inappropriate and sexually suggestive comments. Unsettled, Michelle blocked him on LinkedIn. But soon after, Greg began contacting her through her work email, which he had somehow obtained. His emails became more graphic, threatening, and demanding personal meetings. One email even included a photo of Michelle's apartment building. Greg had tracked her down in real life. Fearing for her safety, Michelle reported the situation to her company and law enforcement. An investigation revealed that Greg wasn't an executive at all. He was a serial stalker who had been using LinkedIn to target professional women, manipulating their desire for career advancement as a way to gain access to their personal lives. The police arrested him, but Michelle's experience left her distrustful of online professional platforms, realizing that even on seemingly secure, career-focused sites, predators can hide in plain sight. 27. The Instagram Doppelganger. Samantha had built a strong presence on Instagram, where she shared her passion for photography and travel. Over time, she amassed thousands of followers who admired her work. But one day, she discovered something that left her shaken to the core. An account with her exact photos, bio, and even personal details was operating under a different name. The imposter account had meticulously replicated Samantha's profile, posting her photos as if they were their own, even going as far as to copy captions word for word. However, what disturbed Samantha most was that the imposter interacted with her real followers, posing as her, and even reached out to brands that she worked with, damaging her professional relationships. At first, Samantha thought it was a case of identity theft for financial gain, but it quickly became much more personal. The fake account started posting personal details about her life that were never made public, such as her home address and details about her family. The imposter sent her a direct message that read, "I know everything about you." Fearing for her safety, Samantha reported the account to Instagram and the police. Investigators uncovered that the imposter wasn't just a random scammer, but someone from Samantha's real-life past. An old acquaintance who had developed an obsession with her. They had been secretly following her for years, collecting details from both her online presence and in-person encounters to craft the perfect digital clone. The person was eventually arrested for stalking and identity theft, but Samantha's experience left her constantly looking over her shoulder, unable to shake the fear of being watched. 28. The dark web assassin for hire plot. In 2019, Rebecca, a mother of two, received an anonymous email that would change her life forever. The message claimed to be from a hitman hired to kill her, but instead of carrying out the assassination, the hitman offered to spare her life for a price. The email included shocking personal details: her full name, home address, her children's names, and even the specific time she left and returned home each day. At first, Rebecca thought it was a cruel prank or an attempt at extortion, but the level of detail convinced her otherwise. Terrified, she went to the police, who launched an immediate investigation. They soon discovered that Rebecca had been targeted by a network operating on the dark web, criminals who ran a fake assassination service that extorted victims by threatening their lives in exchange for large sums of money. What was even more chilling was that someone had actually submitted a request to this fake service, asking for Rebecca to be killed. The police eventually traced the request back to a distant family member with whom Rebecca had a long-standing feud. The person had stumbled upon the dark website and believed they were truly hiring a hitman to eliminate her. Although no real hitman was involved, the psychological damage to Rebecca was immense. The betrayal by a family member, coupled with the terrifying possibility that her life and the lives of her children had been in danger, left her living in constant fear. Even after the family member was arrested, Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling that someone was always out to get her. 29. The Facebook babysitter trap. In 2017, July, a single mother of two young children, needed help balancing work and parenting, so she turned to Facebook to find a babysitter. She posted in a local parents group and quickly received a response from a woman named Laura, who seemed friendly, professional, and experienced. Laura sent references, which Julie verified, and everything checked out. On the day Laura was supposed to babysit, she arrived on time and appeared to be warm and caring with the children. Relieved, Julie left for work, trusting her kids were in good hands. However, throughout the day, she received strange texts from her children saying they were hungry and that the babysitter was sleeping. Concerned, Julie came home early to find Laura passed out on the couch and the children unattended. Julie immediately fired Laura and thought the nightmare was over, but things soon took a darker turn. Over the next few weeks, Julie noticed things missing from her home: small valuables, cash, and even documents like her driver's license and social security card. Then, she started receiving strange calls and messages from creditors about accounts she hadn't opened. It turned out that Laura was not a real babysitter at all. She had been using Facebook to scam families, gaining access to their homes to steal personal information and commit identity theft. Julie's credit was ruined, and she spent months trying to recover from the financial and emotional toll of the situation. Despite reporting the scammer to the police, Laura disappeared, leaving a trail of families like Julie's in her wake. The experience taught Julie a painful lesson about trusting people found online, even when they seem credible. 30. The Twitch streamer's stalker. Liam was a popular video game streamer on Twitch, where he had built a loyal following over the years. He enjoyed the sense of community that came with streaming and often interacted with his viewers during his live sessions. But among his thousands of fans, there was one who took things too far. A user named GameLover was always in Liam's streams, constantly donating large sums of money and sending overly personal messages in the chat. At first, Liam thought it was just a devoted fan, but GameLover began to make Liam uncomfortable by sending private messages asking for personal details, such as where he lived and if they could meet up. Liam politely declined and blocked Game Lover from his channel, but that didn't stop the harassment. Soon after being blocked, Game Lover found Liam's personal information, including his home address, and began sending threatening messages to his email and social media accounts. The stalker even showed up outside Liam's home one night, leaving a chilling note that read, "You can't block me in real life." Fearing for his safety, Liam contacted the police, and the investigation revealed that Game Lover had been stalking him for months, meticulously gathering details from Liam's streams and social media posts. The stalker was arrested, but Liam was left deeply shaken. He took a break from streaming and significantly reduced his online presence, no longer feeling safe sharing his life with the public. 31. The Craigslist roommate horror. In 2016, Erica, a college student in need of a roommate, posted an ad on Craigslist. After a few inquiries, she found Jessica, a woman who seemed perfect for the position. She was around the same age, seemed friendly, and had a stable job. They quickly agreed to move in together. For the first few months, things were fine, but Erica began to notice odd behavior from Jessica. She was secretive about her activities, would stay out all night, and frequently had unknown men over to the apartment. Erica felt uneasy, but she didn't want to cause tension and chose to ignore the red flags. One night, Erica came home to find Jessica sitting on the couch with a man she didn't recognize. The atmosphere felt tense, and Erica immediately went to her room. Later that evening, she heard arguing and the sound of glass breaking. Frightened, Erica called the police. When they arrived, they found that the man Jessica had brought over was a criminal with a violent past, and he had attacked her during an argument. The police discovered that Jessica had been living a double life. She was involved with dangerous people and was using the apartment as a meeting place for illegal activities. Erica had unknowingly invited a dangerous person into her home, putting herself at risk. She quickly moved out, but the experience left her traumatized and distrustful of strangers she met online. 18. The eBay revenge hacker. Nathan was a frequent user of eBay, where he sold rare video games as a side business. One day, he sold a particularly valuable game to a buyer who seemed happy with the purchase. However, after receiving the game, the buyer claimed it was damaged and demanded a refund. Nathan, who had meticulously packaged the game, refused, knowing the item was in perfect condition. The buyer, enraged, began sending Nathan harassing messages, threatening to leave negative feedback and demanding his money back. When Nathan continued to refuse, the harassment escalated. The buyer somehow obtained Nathan's email address and began spamming him with malicious links. Things took a terrifying turn when Nathan realized that his eBay and personal email accounts had been hacked. The buyer had infiltrated his accounts, changed his passwords, and was using them to wreak havoc on his online presence. Nathan's PayPal account was drained, and the hacker began sending threatening messages to his family members, claiming they had personal information that could ruin their lives. The buyer had turned into a full-blown cyberstalker, hell-bent on revenge. It took months of battling with eBay, PayPal, and cybersecurity professionals to regain control of his accounts and secure his personal information. The buyer was eventually tracked down and charged with multiple cybercrimes, but the damage to Nathan's online business and personal life was devastating. What started as a simple eBay transaction had turned into a nightmare of hacking, harassment, and identity theft. 19. The online hitman. In 2016, Jennifer, a 32-year-old woman from Texas, found herself in the middle of a bizarre and terrifying situation after she became the target of an online assassination plot. It began when she received an anonymous email from a user claiming to be part of an underground network of hitmen. The email stated that someone had paid them to kill her, but for a large sum of money, they were willing to call off the hit. At first, Jennifer thought it was a sick joke or a scam, but as she read further, the email included frighteningly accurate details about her life, her home address, daily routine, and even the names of her family members. The message demanded that she transfer money through a cryptocurrency service, or they would proceed with the assassination. Terrified, Jennifer contacted the police, who took the threat seriously. After a thorough investigation, it was discovered that the email came from a dark web extortion ring that had been targeting random individuals, demanding money in exchange for calling off fictional hits. While the plot was fake, the details they had on Jennifer were real, most likely gathered from her social media and public records. Though no physical danger ever existed, the psychological toll on Jennifer was immense. She had come face to face with the dark side of the internet, where strangers could dig into her private life and use that information to terrorize her. It took months for her to feel safe again, and she drastically changed her online presence, deleting social media accounts and becoming hyper-vigilant about her personal information.